So of course I would have to do a little more talking about stress. Stress in adulthood. So, stress is just a part of life. It happens to most humans, I would think. I always don't like to use absolutes as say all humans, but I would think all humans. Anyway, the book sort of breaks these things down. A stressor is a condition, circumstance, or experience that internally impacts a person. It's sort of stress internalized. Stress is external. It's the thing that happens. The stressor is the internal. I think I cut myself off there. But stress is the external, and then the stressor is how it's internalized. Aging through adulthood brings challenging experiences, lots of potential stressors. The death of loved ones, loss of jobs, moving to new places, new jobs, marriage, divorce, illnesses, lots of potentials that can happen throughout a 4-decade span that can become deep stressors. Hassles are those minor everyday stresses: traffic, aches and pains, noise, aches and pains of adulthood, noise, rude strangers. They all add up though. So if we add the hassles to the more deeply internalized stressors, stress can take a toll. Ongoing stress and stressors can deplete our organ reserves. Organ reserves were a part of emerging adulthood that, looked at there. There's physiological impacts to stress: lowered immunity, increased blood pressure, reduced sleep, slowed cognition, faster heartbeat, like a racing heart. And stress has been found to cause illness, that people that were asked to rate their levels of stress and then given like a flu or like a cold actually given them had much higher incidences of contracting the disease. Stress can bring down our immunity to a place that it can begin to cause the illness. If we have also a cognitive reserve, we might think about organ reserve being the way our body all organs kind of hold back a little of their ability in order to deal with stressful situations. We have a cognitive reserve that runs out as well. So we can, use of the mind is very beneficial because wires and fires, right? And so the more we use it, we don't lose it. But overload can cause a lack of clarity, and especially, caused by stress and stress hormones and flipping our lid and things like that. We don't think clearly and we make impulsive decisions that can be dangerous to our beings and our lives. Stress increases all bad habits: drug use, overeating, underexercising. I'm going to stop there for a minute. I'm going to give a talk I often give during emerging adulthood about drug use, because I think that, what we see, and if you read the information, that there is an increase in sort of acceptance of some drugs, especially marijuana. And so it's the one drug I like to talk about. As a teacher who really is always going on and on about the importance of managing stress and coping and teaching ourselves coping practices and building our capacities for these things. What we see right here with adults is that in adulthood is that drug use goes up with stress, and that many people use drugs and marijuana. I don't argue the legalization of marijuana. With students, I don't argue that. I can see arguments for that. Regulating it, making it safer, how people put it on the same plane as alcohol or cigarette. I get that. Here's my thing with any of it, that I would be a hypocrite if I was really pro, right? Because anything that we use, and I think it's often used, not, because, I love the taste, though I get students who do. It's used as a way to cope with stress, with things in life. And so anything that's used external to ourselves that takes us away from our lives and from our capacity to manage and regulate and deal, I find dangerous in that. Marijuana has been found to decrease motivation, to undermine our own abilities to manage stress and to regulate our stress and motivate ourselves. It gets into the reward system just like anything else. and demotivates to some extent. And so I'm all for things that can increase those parts of the brain for motivation and regulation naturally, because they open us. They open us to life and open and expand our lens of possibility into optimism and positivity. And so, that's what all I'm going to say on that, because I didn't talk about it really during adolescence or emerging adulthood. But we do see that it increases with stress through adulthood: overeating, underexercising, just basic bad habits. Stress increases depression and other psychological illnesses that impair thinking. Stress attacks the brain itself. It floods it with cortisol and adrenaline and our stress hormones. And just like that power strip, anything that's flooded doesn't work well. It burns out over time. Stress begets stress. Products of stress, like illness, can tend to elevate divorce rates and conflict rates. We see higher rates of divorce in people when one partner gets sick, or when children are sick, or something happens to children. So when people are put under huge stressors, when they have huge stressors, it can eat away at the fabric of our relationships and damage us. So then let's talk about coping with stress in adulthood. So the body this isn't very big, but you guys are young. I'm going to read it. So coping with stress, the body has its forms: homeostasis and allostasis, physiological coping mechanisms for keeping the body in balance. Homeostasis is the body's way. It's kind of single point things that we do, that the body does just automatically, to put itself back in balance, especially like the temperature of the body and all the systems in the body. So we shiver when we're cold, we sweat when we're hot. All of those things we pant, all of these things are about regulating systems within the body to bring them back into balance, systems that we have in place. Allostasis is the way the body adapts to maintain homeostasis, and a little bit more over time. It takes it's using a combination of dynamic processes. So more than just maybe that one thing, but bringing all of these things together for the body. And sometimes, I look at it like over time what the body can do. If you decide to diet, okay, something that the body can do over time is if it sees that, I'm not getting enough food, it slows down metabolism. So at first, a diet might, you're not eating as much, so it increases hunger, or hunger increases, or there might be weight loss and so forth. But over time, metabolism decreases because the body is pretty smart. It says, okay, we're not getting enough, as much food. We need to maintain what we have and use the energy. I'm going to slow down the metabolism or whatever. Or, we're not getting as much. So we're going to slow that down. And then we gain weight. So allostasis tries over time to kind of make all these different compensations for the things that are going on in the body. Well, that was a great thing. In my head, it's good. It didn't come out so well. Anyway, it's all the little adaptations the body makes over time to try to keep things in balance. It regulates the HPA axis. It produces adrenaline, cortisol, other chemical messengers, as well as the nervous system. It's going to slow down the heart rate. It's going to speed up the heart rate, slow down digestion, speed up digestion based on information that it's getting from the body over time and what's needed. It tweaks it as the nervous system gets tweaked in order to mediate that stress response after periods of acute stress. So it's going to do this. But because we have chronic stress, it's like it's doing it all the time. And that can be called allostatic load or overload. It's the wear and tear on the body and brain caused by being stressed out. Too much adaptation over time in response to chronic stress breaks the body down and breaks the mind down, breaks our ability to think clearly down. So I hope all of that sort of made sense. So that's the body's way physiologically of trying to keep itself in balance. But the mind, which is more my area here, has cognitive strategies for dealing with stress. One, avoidant coping. It's a coping mechanism. It's like a lot of defense mechanisms like denial, ignoring, forgetting, hiding. It's the worst way of coping. It increases depression and risk of suicide, and it causes this allostatic overload. Because it just keeps the stress in The body, though, is still trying to manage those stress hormones that are feeding it, and it's not dealing with it. It's not dealing with it. And it's going to damage relationships. It damages the self. It damages the body. Problem-focused coping is tackling stressful situations directly. So it's kind of like when I was talking to my son the other day, and it's like, okay, I can't find my camera. And for him, he can get very emotional and very kind of, oh my God, I can't find it, and I lost it, I'm going to get in trouble, and all these things. It's like, okay, what we need to do is try to problem solve, though. When is the last time that you remember seeing your camera? And it's like slowing down. How do I face this? How do I problem solve this? And in some situations, depending on the situation, that is the best way, especially things like that, like practical items that we have to deal with. I have so much on my desk. I have so much on my plate. Okay, how am I going to tackle this in order to get things done? Men tend toward problem-focused coping. Seeking attack or escape is that fight or flight mechanism. Our little boys are often tend to sort of fight back, manage things, handle things. It's very testosterone driven. Assertion can become aggression, though, over time. And, we can think about it if we look at like men and women and things that might get them into trouble in communication. This is don't try to solve my problems, just listen. Women can say, because men are, and if we look at evolution, always just trying to sort of tackle the beast and deal with it or get away from it. Whatever needs to be done, though, we're going to problem solve here. And it can be very, very effective, especially in practical matters. Emotion-focused coping, changing emotional reactions to a stressor rather than the stressor itself. So that's a lot what our practice-based stress reduction includes. It's more about how do we learn to regulate our emotions in the face of stress, because stress is going to happen. Loss is going to happen. Things are going to go down that we don't like. And so how do we manage our emotions? How do we learn to do that? Women tend to befriend. They tend to seek company of others, very oxytocin driven. They're about, psychotherapy is a lot about learning how to deal with, manage, regulate our emotions in the face of stressors. Now, this is very helpful, especially with emotional stressors. I mean, these are the things that we can't fix or make practical. Loss and grief and hurt. So problem-focused and emotion-focused have their place, really, with either. So I say, in the current textbook, see page 618, I'll have to update that. In the textbook to look at the stressors of adulthood. And I have some also articles, I think, about what the biggest stressors are for adults and coping and research and things on that and how they cope. All right, so you can think about what is your coping style? How do you deal with emotional stressors, and how do you deal with practical stressors? And where are you in this, and how is it working, right? That has a lot to do with our whole PPD part of this class. All right, so a whole nother thing here we're going to talk about that happens in adulthood, and I definitely see it happening with me in adulthood, selective optimization with compensation. So an example of it to start out, Margaret has started slowing down in her ability to type, but she is an excellent researcher. She focuses on her area of skill so she can maintain her job with her law firm. So she moves more into really focusing, beefing up her strength in research and finding ways to compensate for the slow typing. So we selectively optimize what we're really good at and compensate for those declining skills that are going to happen in adulthood. So adults seek maximum gains by practicing abilities they excel in or prefer. We become more and more specialists than generalists. In high school and even in college, we're very much generalists. We're looking at lots of different opportunities and options for life and how to live it and what we want to do and be. And as we age and we go through adulthood, we're looking to specialize. And some of these, the way our cognition changes and our peaks and valleys ask us to. We do better when we specialize. Optimizing certain intelligences and neglecting others includes work as well as relationships. So I find that, as I'm getting older, there are certain things that I love to do. And I have to compensate, even within my job. I love the actual teaching. I don't like a lot of the paperwork. But so, when I look at the whole playing field of what I want to do, really look on, and even within, when you're teaching development, it is an enormous field. And so even within that, within any field that you're in, you're going to focus and specialize within the things that you love, that you're passionate about, that you can find purpose in. And I think a lot of adulthood is about really discovering that about yourself. And you can probably figure out where I have been passionate about certain things. And we get choosier with our time, money, and energy. Those are our personal resources, time, energy, and money. And where are we going to use those? And so with friendships, that happens too. We have a huge playing field for finding friends in adolescence and even in college and some in emerging adulthood. And as we age, our playing field gets smaller. Maybe where we work, where our kids create that for us. And it's like we only have time for so much and energy for so much, right? We also so expert cognition, becoming a selective expert, specializing in activities that are personally meaningful and powerful to us. Expert in this case does not simply mean one is a genius in an area, rather that expertise is based on accumulated knowledge, practice, and experience, and I think passion. So in a field of expertise, an adult is intuitive, automatic thinking, and the expert thinking is intuitive, automatic, strategic, and flexible. We learn to sort of anticipate problems. I can't seem to spell. That seems to be one of my compensation things. Intuitive. Anticipate problems and manages them based on prior time, deep understanding and experience. Automatic things, some activities become unconscious. We just do them. We don't have to learn them over and over. And they look at this by studying people that have been in a field a long time and novices or beginners, where beginners may have a lot of like factual knowledge based on the latest report or text or whatever. Those experts in the field that have been doing it a long time, things just come to them. They see the patterns. They see the ability. They know what to do in the moment. They have better strategies because they've had to practice them, trial and error them over time. So expert cognition. The last part that I'm going to talk about in adulthood is personality. And very shortly here, really, though. Genes. I'll talk generativity versus stagnation really quickly because this is Erikson's stage in adulthood. And generativity goes, I think, a lot with what we just said about that in terms of our lives. Adults seek ways to be productive in caring ways, to feel successful in achieving and impactful. It's really that search for purpose and meaning, not just, and that can happen through relationships, but it's different from that intimacy versus isolation. Now that we might, that intimacy is really important to us, and there's sort of deeper, bigger contexts, and as we're aging, we're like, wow, what is my life about? What am I going to leave behind in this world? And what am I going to pass on to those relationships? Met through parenting, caregiving, creative work and employment, vocation, hopefully, something that's deeply meaningful to us. Stagnation is that feeling of, according to Erikson, personal impoverishment, a lack of meaning or purpose in life, and something deeper. So then let's look at personality. How does it change, through adulthood? Genes, parental practices, culture, and adult circumstances all contribute. Of these 4, genes are the most influential because they have the longest lasting impact on us. They're with us from the beginning to the end. And then the big 5 is the personality test that seems to, stick around a lot. There's also like the Myers-Briggs, which I actually am a fan of. There's lots of different types of personality tests. The big 5 is one that's big in psychology. Clusters of personality traits that remain stable. That's what they look for, is what kind of tends to remain stable. with almost every aspect of adulthood. There is a Big Five test link, so I encourage you to look at that. The Big Five includes conscientiousness, extroversion, neuroticism. Those are openness, and now I can't remember the fifth one. See, this is what happens when you age. Conscientiousness, extroversion, neuroticism, openness. Well, it'll be there. That's embarrassing. But go look at the test because it's really interesting. Oh, it'll be right here. I think this is agreeableness. Agreeableness. I didn't like that one, so it will be agreeable. Mold. This is interesting, though. The personality traits, openness, conscientiousness, extroversion. They looked at where in different parts of the country are these strongest. And so like the green, so if you go to like Colorado here, we have, how is this done? Relaxed and creative. Oh, I think it's just done first here. Openness, conscientiousness, extroversion, agreeableness, and neuroticism. The numbers in each state represent the score. A score of 50 is the national average. So we're kind of right up there, except, we're not so neurotic. Hey, that's good. But this goes along with ecological niche. So the question is, in adulthood, people choose their particular social context. We become more drawn to places that are like-minded, like-hearted to us. We select vocations, mates, neighborhoods, and even potentially places in the country to live. So I think the question, as they were doing these kinds of tests, is, do people of certain types, are they drawn to certain areas and then create that ecological niche there? Or do somehow these parts of the areas draw people of certain types because it's already there? So it's kind of like people of like mind gather. We can think of it as stereotyping, but if we think of it like this, that over time, personality has driven people to certain parts of the country, and then certain parts of the country have drawn people of certain personality and created this kind of ecological niche as we age that we kind of choose what fits us. I think in Colorado, what I have found, so many people live here out of choice, have come here because of the lifestyle, because they want to live here. So you can kind of look through this on the PowerPoint and see what you think. That's actually going to be the last I do on adulthood. There's text reading, there's articles, there's all kinds of information. Have fun with it, and we'll talk later.